Well, we're back to keep talking about how we are stocking our pantries. And today we're talking about fruits and veggies, which really is my favorite thing to talk about because, well, for one, it's the things that I can grow really well here on my very small homestead in Wisconsin, and they're the things that I love to preserve the most. So we're going to talk about the 5 ways that we keep our pantry stocked on purpose, full of fruits and veggies. And I'm going to tell you some of my favorite things that I like to preserve myself and the things that I like to buy. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Jess from the blog siloandsage.com, and if you're new here we talk about all things homestead, homeschool, and handmade. And today we are talking about the pantry. We are actually joining up with a pantry challenge that I'm doing with some friends over on Instagram, and we're talking about keeping our pantries stocked on purpose. So you can find that hashtag over on Instagram, and you can find the other videos in this series, and you can watch them in my pantry playlist. So today we're going to talk about fruits and veggies, and there are 5 different ways that I like to keep fruits and veggies on hand, and some of them are ways that I preserve the fruits and veggies myself, the things that we grow or forage here on our homestead or in our general area, and there are some things that we buy that I might buy and then preserve myself, or I just buy them already preserved or already ready to keep in my pantry. So I'm going to give you a quick glance through my pantry. Now this is my everyday pantry up in my kitchen, and these are the dried goods that we like to keep. Well, and some truffles because, hi, everybody needs a little chocolate. But these are mostly goods that either I buy already dried or we dry ourselves. I really like to dry fruits and veggies that we grow or that we buy in bulk. Things like strawberries, these are tomatoes that we grew, dried blueberries, carrots and celery that we grew. There's some herbs in here, which I know are not fruits and veggies, and some spinach that we grew. There's mushrooms up here that we didn't grow those, but I bought them in bulk. And then zucchini that we grew. I like to reuse jars, like this is a jelly jar that I reuse. This is a container. I don't even remember what was in that container, but that's just a plastic container that I reused. Down here there's another jelly jar, which I know is full of nuts and not full of fruits and veggies, but I wanted to show you a couple of the containers that I reuse. Drying fruits and veggies is so simple, and you don't need a dehydrator to do it, but I think it's one of the easiest ways. Now, I found my dehydrator. I will link it in the description below, but I actually found mine on Facebook Marketplace really, really inexpensive. And I have a second small dehydrator that I don't necessarily recommend as your like go-to dehydrator, but I found it at a thrift store and I picked it up, and it's been a great second dehydrator for when I have to go through a lot of things, like when we are bursting with zucchini from the garden, or we have a lot of, I'm buying something in bulk like mushrooms or fruit or something. But drying foods is a great way to keep them shelf stable, and they last for a really long time on our pantry shelf. Now, if you've seen some of my other pantry videos, you've probably seen this section of my prepared pantry because honestly, it's my favorite with the prettiest backdrop because these are my home canned goods. Now, I'm actually fairly new to canning. I've only been doing it for a short time, so I am not one of those people who you're going to see like walls and walls of home canned goods because I'm just not at that level yet. And I like to preserve a lot of fruits because they're easy to grow around here, they're easy to find, and they are very, very easy to preserve. Learning how to can things like pears and peaches and applesauce and tomato sauce and jams and jellies and things like that is really simple. So that's a great place to start if you have not done a lot of canning yourself yet. So I like to can up fruits that I have either bought in bulk or that I have grown. Now this is a great thing to do with any fruits and veggies that you can grow or buy yourself, especially if you can buy them locally or if you can buy them in bulk at a good price. Or if you can forage them in your yard. We have tons of wild raspberries that grow here in our yard in the summertime, so we like to pick tons of them. Now, a lot of them don't tend to make it to the preservation stage because my kids just eat them all up because they're so delicious and they're so good fresh. But we like to freeze them and we like to can them into jams and jellies. Now, right now there's not a lot of tomato sauce on my shelf because I actually didn't can any of my tomatoes last year into sauce. So this is actually my 2021 tomato sauce that I canned. All of my 2022 tomatoes are actually still in my freezer because I just didn't have the time or the capacity to can them last year. So I just threw them in my freezer, and my goal was I would just can them at whatever point I was ready to can them, and I just keep forgetting about it. So it's still in my to-do list. They're still in my freezer, and we're down to about 3 jars of tomato sauce. So I definitely need to get canning those tomatoes soon. Now, when it comes to a prepared pantry, you don't have to be all or nothing. You don't have to be just home canned goods or just store-bought goods. You can do both. You can do a mixture, a combination. So I have some store-bought canned goods here. I do keep some store-bought cans of like tomato sauce or diced tomatoes. Even though I grow a lot of tomatoes, I actually grow tomatoes are probably one of the crops that I grow the most of. And I grow carrots, I grow potatoes, but I just don't can them at this point. So right now I keep some canned goods on hand because I just think it's important to have a diversity in where you're getting your food. And because we live on a small homestead with a lot of people, I have not gotten to the point where I'm growing all of our food. So I like to have some store-bought goods as well. And things that I'm not growing, like organic mushrooms. I have some that are dried, but I want to keep some of these on hand too for when you really quickly need to throw something into like a dinner or something. And things like spicy peppers that I don't grow a lot of spicy peppers here on our property. Now, obviously, canned and dehydrated fruits and veggies are shelf stable, but we also keep a lot of fruits and veggies in the freezer. Now, these are not going to last, obviously. If there was like a power outage, this isn't going to work, right? But these also would be very easily dehydrated or canned if we ever needed to make space in our freezer, which I have totally done. I had some frozen spinach in my freezer one time and I dehydrated a bunch of it. I have done the same with blueberries, and I have cooked up cranberries and canned them. It is very easy to take fruits and veggies that you have in your freezer and make them shelf stable if you need to. But it's also really great and really easy for my kids to pull out a bag of frozen fruit that we got at Costco and throw it into a smoothie. This works a little nicer than dehydrated fruit. It just keeps, keeps the consistency a little nicer for something like a smoothie. So some of these fruits and veggies are ones that we bought, like this one at Costco, but we also will take things that we grow in the garden. Like I have some, this was pureed pumpkin that I used some of it and then I froze the rest of it. I also have some peaches that when we canned up some peaches, I honestly got a little sick of canning peaches, and so I threw some in the freezer and that my kids use when they make smoothies. It's a really great way to diversify and to not have everything in one spot, or to just like, if I wanted to take these peaches and I wanted to make them into like pie filling and can it, I totally could do that. Fruits and veggies are such a great way to start canning. So if you have not had the confidence to try canning, I really encourage you to start with something simple like peaches or pears or applesauce. Applesauce was where I started canning. So simple to do. You don't need anything complicated. You don't even need to have special equipment. You can just have like a really large pot and a rack at the bottom to start water bath canning. I will link all of the things that I use in the description below, but it's so simple to start water bath canning. Now, another easy way to keep fruits and veggies on hand is to keep fresh ones. There are some fruits and veggies that will last a really long time without any special like refrigeration, especially things like pumpkin and squash and potatoes and onions. Apples will also store a really long time if you have like a cooler room. We have an unheated mudroom, and that's where we keep a lot of our apples that we get in the fall. Now, they won't last forever, but if you have a second fridge that you can keep at an ideal temperature for apples, that's a really great way to do it too. Or keep them in a cooler space. When they start to go bad, then you can them and put them on your shelf. Now, when it comes to things like potatoes and onions, these are not going to last forever either, but they will keep for quite a long time. Now, these are potatoes and onions that I grew this year, so they have been, you know, sitting down in my basement since the fall. Now, they are starting to sprout. These potatoes are starting to sprout, and I'm actually going to let these sprout because these are really tiny potatoes. They will work well as seed potatoes. So I'm letting these go, like I'm letting them sprout so that I can plant them this spring. And my onions have definitely seen better days and definitely need to be used because they are starting to grow little onion shoots here. But these have lasted a really long time from the fall till now. It is March. And so you can keep these in your, especially if you have like a cooler basement or a closet that's kind of in a corner that doesn't get, you know, a lot of heat in the winter, or like us, if you have like an unheated mudroom, you just have to make sure you don't get a lot of pests, because I have had issues in the past where we do get mice sometimes in our basement, and the mice will get into things like potatoes or squash and pumpkins. So I have to be careful of where I'm putting them, and you want to make sure they're in a dark place. Your potatoes are definitely going to sprout if you keep them where there's a lot of light all the time, or if it gets very warm, they're going to go soft very quickly. So you want to keep them, you know, in the appropriate place for whatever it is that you're keeping, but you can keep them for a really long time just sitting on a shelf somewhere. You know, the other way that I love to preserve fruits and veggies, especially things that I have grown in my garden, is fermenting them. Now, if you have never fermented something, it is so easy. It really just requires salt and water, but you can also do it with other flavors like turmeric, different herbs and spices, and you can kind of change it up a little bit. Now, you can do things like pickles. We love to ferment pickles. I love to ferment sauerkraut. Well, we grew a lot of cabbage this year, and this was the primary way that I preserved most of it. Now, I choose not to can these afterwards. I choose to actually keep them in my fridge because I don't want to lose a lot of the good fermentation qualities, like the good health benefits of fermentation. A lot of that is lost in the canning process. So I choose not to actually can these and store them on my pantry shelf down in the basement. But you can definitely do that if you want to keep them more shelf stable. But these will last a really, really long time. These have lasted since fall in my fridge, and they still taste great. They definitely get a little bit more like a stronger flavor the longer they sit in your fridge, but it's really delicious and I love it. And there's just so many good health benefits also to fermenting. I will leave a link below to all of my fermenting supplies as well. If you haven't already, make sure you check out my pantry playlist to see all my other videos about keeping a prepared pantry. And if you go to siloandsage.com/prepare, you can get your free guide to a prepared pantry where it will get you started with building your own prepared pantry. And you can see all the things that you want to get your prepared pantry started. And if you haven't already, head over to Instagram and find me, follow me over there, and you can follow the hashtag stockedonpurpose to see all the other accounts that are sharing different ways that they stock their pantry, whether it is from their homestead or their farm, from things they buy in bulk from their community, or things they get from the store. And if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in another video. In the meantime, keep cultivating your home. Bye, friends.